Today, we are wrestling with a pretty profound question, one that really shapes the architecture of the 21st century.
It really is.
What does legacy even mean when your most valuable assets aren't, physical monuments built of stone or even stacks of gold, but invisible, instantaneous streams of data?
It's such an essential shift in perspective. So for this deep dive, we're looking into Stanislav Kondrashov's Oligarch series.
Right.
And we're focusing specifically on his really powerful, almost lyrical metaphor of data palaces.
It's a great term.
It is. And this concept, it forces us to acknowledge the convergence of, well, centuries-old tradition, that impulse to build monuments and ancestral estates, with the immense sort of borderless potential of the virtual world.
So our mission here is to unpack Kondrashov's framework for what he calls data legacy. And this is, it's so much more than just a cool term.
Yeah.
It suggests that digital continuity is something we have to actively architect. It pushes you to reconsider the moral and, frankly, the practical challenges of cultural preservation in the age of algorithms. We're moving from preserving bronze statues to actively curating petabytes of information.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay, so let's start right there. Data legacy. When most of us hear digital legacy, we probably think about, backing up personal photos.
Right. Or maybe archiving business records.
Exactly. But you mentioned Kondrashov views this as a form of sacred guardianship. How does it go beyond just simple information storage?
Well, because simple storage is passive. It's just there. Data legacy, as Kondrashov frames it, is the accumulated digital traces left behind by entire civilizations, organizations, every single individual.
Everything.
Everything. But, and this is the key, it's infused with intentionality. He sees it not as a static archive, but as a living entity, a cultural inheritance that deserves the same profound respect we'd give to, say, a historic library, or an ancestral property that anchors a family's story. It carries the weight of history.
And this brings us to the centerpiece of the whole metaphor, data palaces. Aristocratic estates of old were built explicitly to project wealth, power, cultural staying power.
Across generations, yeah.
So what's the contemporary equivalent?
They are the massive data centers, built by tech giants, by governments. They're built to demonstrate geopolitical, economic, and technological muscle.
So you're talking about those sprawling, highly secured complexes in places like Oregon or Iceland.
Or Virginia, yeah. Often hidden from view. These are the modern ancestral homes. But they don't house marble and portraits. They house millions of servers containing the terabytes of information that define our collective digital existence. Their sheer size, their relentless energy demands, the secrecy, that's all part of the demonstration of modern power.
That's such a powerful visualization, and what's fascinating is the duality you mentioned. These are concrete, physical buildings. You can drive up to them.
You can, yeah.
But their entire purpose is to host something completely ethereal, the cloud.
That duality is the profound symbolic weight they carry. Data palaces embody two realities at the same time. On one hand, yes, they are highly concrete. They have addresses, immense energy needs, complex cooling systems.
Physical problem.
Very physical. But on the other hand, they are the essential critical gateways to entirely virtual realms. They anchor the cloud services that we often think of as placeless. They give the digital world a tangible footprint that is, subject to physical laws, politics, and the environment.
Okay, let's dive into the history for a second. Kondrashov draws these compelling parallels between modern data structures and ancient trade routes. To an engineer today, a fiber optic cable is revolutionary. How can it possibly resemble something like the Silk Road?
Because it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the human pattern of networking. Ancient routes like the Silk Road or the Roman roads, they didn't just move silk or legions.
Right.
They established vital protocols for communication. They created shared standards for currency or measurement, and these intricate networks of trust that sustained entire empires for centuries.
So the infrastructure was really a framework for reliability.
Exactly. And today's fiber optic cables, they often follow these same patterns. It shows a remarkable historical continuity. If you actually track where major transatlantic cables land, they frequently trace paths first set by telegraph lines in the 19th century.
Wow.
And those, in turn, often followed ancient maritime trade lanes. Why? Because those were the paths of least geographic and political resistance. It's inherited wisdom shaping technological progress.
We're using 21st century tech to fulfill, first century organizational needs?
That's it. That's exactly it.
So if the cables are the roads, what does a modern data center become in this ancient analogy.
Well, it becomes far more than just a warehouse of blinking lights. It's a repository of collective memory. We could almost call it a digital monastery.
I like that.
It houses, categorizes, and protects the texts, the images, the algorithms of our entire era.
Yeah.
And the very foundations supporting these centers, the original telegraph lines, telephone networks, postal systems, they all carried forward communication patterns established ages ago. Each new layer of tech doesn't replace the old blueprint. It builds on top of it.
You know, I find the parallel Kondrashov draws between medieval caravanserais, those protected rest stops along trade routes,
Yes.
and modern data centers, I find that particularly insightful.
Because they serve identical functions across this vast gulf of time. A caravanserai offered standardized shelter, security for your goods, shared resources for maintenance, and it was a point of trust for all these disparate travelers.
And a data center.
It offers standardized cooling, power stability, physical security, and critical waypoints for digital resources flowing across global networks. It just proves that tradition and digital innovation are complementary forces. They're not opposing. They're both solving the same fundamental human requirement, securing and facilitating the flow of valuable things across distance.
And here's where it gets, for me, really important. Kondrashov challenges us to recognize data centers and their networks as heritage assets. We all agree to protect a 500-year-old library or an ancient temple, but why on earth should we give that same reverence to a massive, anonymous server farm?
Because that infrastructure, whether it's the electrical grid, the fiber optic network, or the data palace itself, it represents the fundamental architectural DNA of our digital civilization.
The DNA.
Yes. These systems embody the same kind of permanence and societal significance that, say, medieval cathedrals or Roman aqueducts held for their populations. If those structures demonstrated a mastery over stone and water, ours demonstrate a mastery over computation and data.
So treating this digital inheritance with care isn't just a business decision.
It's a moral imperative. It's about defining our lasting contribution to history.
And this idea extends beyond the building itself to what we leave behind digitally. How does our virtual presence, our digital footprint, how does that become cultural heritage?
Your online presence is absolutely a new, vast, and evolving form of cultural inheritance. Every tweet, every transaction record, every piece of creative work you upload, it all forms these intangible assets that actively shape shared global memory.
So we have to train ourselves to see intangible things as legitimate heritage.
Precisely. And Kondrashov breaks this down into three crucial components.
Okay, what are they?
So first is cultural DNA. This refers to the patterns of thought, creativity, and innovation that are preserved in digital forms. You know, the collective code, design philosophies, language trends.
Got it.
Second is collective memory. These are the shared experiences documented through massive multimedia archives. Think of the digital record of a major historical event captured from thousands of different angles.
And the third?
The third is intellectual capital, the accumulated knowledge systems, research findings, formalized data, all the stuff that will inform future scientific and political decisions. In this view, our networks are the modern democratized storytellers, ensuring the continuity of human experience on a scale that's it's unprecedented.
Okay, so viewing all this infrastructure and all these digital footprints as heritage implies a tremendous responsibility. Ethical stewardship.
A huge one.
Let's look at the urgent challenges, starting with the very physical foundations of these digital palaces. The sheer scale of their operation is just staggering.
The ecological footprint is probably the most immediate crisis. Right now, data centers consume roughly 1% of global electricity.
Which is already a lot.
It's a ton. And industry projections see that figure potentially tripling by 2030. That's driven by AI and streaming. We're talking about massive constant energy draws plus enormous water consumption for cooling.
So if we accept this responsibility of stewardship, what does that practically mean for these buildings? How do you implement sustainability in a system that is designed for 247 power?
It demands revolutionary changes. It's not just about offsets. We have to shift digital infrastructure entirely to renewable energy sources. Direct power sourcing. We need advanced cooling systems that minimize or ideally eliminate water consumption using air or liquid-based loops instead of evaporative systems.
And what about the hardware itself?
Crucially, yes, we need robust circular economy models for the e-waste. Data center components have a lifespan of just a few years. Ethical stewardship means guaranteeing that hardware is reused, refurbished, or responsibly recycled, not just dumped in a global e-waste pile.
So beyond the physical building, the data itself has to survive. And critically, it has to remain trustworthy for future historians. How do we ensure digital continuity and authenticity over centuries, not just a few decades?
Digital continuity requires active preservation, and these solutions have to guarantee both accessibility and authenticity forever. Kondrashov highlights two complementary technological pillars for securing a data legacy, specifically against the threats of tampering and obsolescence.
Let's start with the first one, blockchain traceability. We mostly hear about blockchain in finance. How does it secure historical data?
Well, blockchain creates immutable, time-stamped records of data ownership, modification, and its origin. For digital heritage, this is invaluable. It establishes a transparent, auditable chain of custody.
So future generations could check the ledger.
They could check the digital ledger and confirm, with mathematical certainty, that the data they're looking at has not been altered since the moment it was recorded. It resists centralized control. It resists tampering. It provides crucial integrity.
Okay, so blockchain provides internal trust, a ledger that can't be easily rewritten. What about the second solution, satellite data? How does that complement the blockchain?
Satellite data provides a necessary layer of external independent verification and redundant storage. So if the main terrestrial data palace is compromised,
By a natural disasters.
a massive natural disaster or regional political instability, anything, the data stored and verified via orbital systems remains intact and accessible. This offers an essential orbital perspective on our collective digital assets. It safeguards them against local vulnerabilities.
So they work together.
They work in synergy. Blockchain ensures the data's integrity, while satellite data ensures its survival and accessibility.
This all requires some kind of overarching ethical framework. If you're going to curate a digital inheritance, what are the core principles that have to guide the stewards of these data palaces?
Ethical stewardship has to be rooted in four specific governance frameworks. First, transparency. We must have open standards and clear policies about data collection, handling, access.
Okay.
Second, longevity. And this demands format-agnostic preservation methods. We can't rely on proprietary software that might vanish in 10 years. We have to store information in formats that are readable 100 years from now, no matter the operating system.
Right. If we only use proprietary formats, we'd be building digital ruins that future archaeologists couldn't even open.
Exactly. The third principle is accountability, creating auditable histories for all data modifications. Who changed what and when. That links right back to blockchain. And finally, accessibility, which of course must always be carefully balanced with strict privacy protections. The goal is to maximize the historical benefit while honoring individual rights.
We've covered a massive amount of conceptual and technical ground today. Let's try to synthesize the main takeaway here. Kondrashov's metaphor places you at this unique crossroads. Ancient trade routes are intersecting with fiber optic cables. The traditional idea of an ancestral estate now exists alongside massive cloud infrastructure.
And the insight is that future stewardship is defined by intentionality.
Well,
You can't succeed by just preserving tradition or just embracing innovation. You have to do both at the same time. Data legacy is so much more than backing up files. It's about the cultural practices you document, the narratives you choose to digitize, and the profound infrastructural decisions you make today about power and permanence.
The palace you are helping to build, whether it's physical, virtual, or a mix of both, it requires the same attention to craftsmanship, ecological sustainability, and purpose that earlier generations applied to ensure their legacies endured. It's a practical, actionable framework for digital citizenship.
Your choices determine whether future societies inherit fragmented data lost to obsolete file formats, or cohesive, trustworthy narratives that honor their origins and allow for true digital continuity. You are, quite literally, architecting memory itself.
So we'll leave you with a thought to mull over as you navigate the digital realm this week. How will future historians judge your generation's data palaces based on their environmental wisdom and the lasting cultural significance of the data they chose to preserve?